CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.
We have former President of Federated Farmers and currently the Biosecurity Minister, Andrew Hoggard, joining me now. Hey, you're back at the farm, Andrew?
Yep. Parliament finished yesterday afternoon, so back home, although I do have to zoom into a meeting later, Joint Food Ministers meeting with Australians. Was supposed to be in Alice Springs for that meeting, but decided to put it online rather than everyone burn a whole lot of avgas, which we don't need to do at this time of year.
Oh, very smart.
Particularly right now with the fuel crisis, yeah.
It would be very nice to get home, I can imagine. You've had a lot of things going on, and the press release that came through yesterday was about how you're going to have a go at our readiness on foot and mouth disease. Good on you, Andrew. This is exactly what we need to do. How does an exercise on farm work?
So my understanding is for the first exercise that's happening, which is called Exercise Farm Gate, and it's not as exciting as what the military comes up with in terms of names, but more practical in a New Zealand sense. It's mainly about how would we respond to a, the vet calls up and says, hey, you got some weird stuff here, might be foot and mouth. So it's about trialing that initial response. How would that work? Can everyone get there, set up perimeters, learning from things that might go wrong, like, Google Maps sending everyone down the wrong farm race or things like that. You don't know. You can write all this stuff down on paper, but until you actually do it for, trying to do a practice run of it, that's when you find out all the things that you didn't think of on paper that could go wrong. So that's sort of what it's... I think the intent is for this first one, and then there'll be a second exercise in a couple of months' time, which is more of a high level. Okay, we're into a response. How's it working? Is simulating, is all the communication working and the people talking, and how all that interagency and interorganisation stuff working? So you're sort of hitting it from a couple of different approaches.
Has there been an internal inquiry into the handling of M. bovis that you've got your hands on that's informed anything going forward?
So there was a report into M. bovis, or a review of it, and that certainly, I believe that's been made public a couple of years back. That certainly raised, I think there was a number of concerns. Most of them have been dealt with. There was a few issues around traceability in particular. We've got Nate, we had, I think it's Farms Online, and, some of that traceability systems aren't quite as joined up as they are. And obviously we've had, the My Osprey, which didn't happen, and they're reworking that to come up with a better system. So that's probably, the main part from the M. bovis that hasn't been addressed yet, simply because, that work's still happening with getting My Osprey, or the new version of My Osprey, up and running.
Yep. I see here that, if no action was taken, which there would be, it could cost us $14.3 billion if we had an outbreak. Naturally, we will take action. What could it look like around the cost regardless, with action taken, even swiftly and prepared?
Yeah, look, and that depends on how sort of big a scale you are. If it was, say, we found it as, let's just say something happened in a less agriculturally populated part of the country. So, say, right at the south end of Auckland, where maybe it's not got quite into the farmland area, and we're able to contain it quickly. The costs might only be in hundreds of millions. If it was in the middle of the Waikato, you're probably looking in the billions. So it's all about how quickly we can get on top and stop the spread. If you look at the outbreak recently in Germany, they were able to sort of contain it to that one singular farm. And so, within short order, other provinces within Germany were able to start exporting again. Product kept flowing from the rest of Germany, and they were able to provide assurances to international markets that, okay, we've got the quarantine happening in this location in Germany. The rest of Germany's fine. And so, if we can quickly do that, then we can ensure that, the rest of New Zealand can keep exporting it. It's one of the things MPI's sort of trade team are working on, getting that assurance systems in place with other countries around, our ability to contain a response. And that's why this readiness work's so important, showing other countries that we've got these systems in place, we know what we're doing. So if ever to blow up, we can in quick order say, okay, look, hey, this is top of the North Island here. It's not the South Island. It's not the lower half of the North Island. We can get, there's no reason to stop products coming from these parts of our country. I think our historical approach was, oh my God, we're going to have to shut all of New Zealand down for months on end. And so, the better we can get our systems, the more we can avoid that if it was to ever happen. And ideally, we never want it to happen. But as the saying goes, be prepared.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I can see them using it as a non-tariff trade barrier, saying, no, that's easy. Yeah. Tick. No New Zealand. So great to hear that, Andrew. What are we learning from China, who's currently battling the outbreak, and what they're doing?
Well, it's always, you've got countries like China and India, other parts, South America, where there's different approaches that lots of other countries are taking. I think where we probably take our lessons from is more Germany, Hungary, Slovakia, where those European ones happened, where there is an intent to stamp it out, remove it, not an almost, how can we live with it or minimize it type approach. So that's probably, I'd say it's more the European scenario is where we've, followed up on, understood what it was they did and how they did it, and what are the lessons we could learn from them on their approach to it.
Yeah. Is there a need for a constant communication strategy to the farming sector on a regular basis around biosecurity readiness? Because, it can just sort of taper off and we get a bit slack.
Well, it's a hard thing because if you're constantly talking up risks and all the rest of it, people can get a little laissez-faire about it. And then also, I've seen a few of the Facebook comments from the people that believe that airlines put chemicals in the sky and, it's, this is the next UN propaganda exercise to control us sort of thing. So you run the risk of that sort of talk if you're constantly going on about it. I think the key thing is just a low-level background thing for farmers of what are good biosecurity practices on farm, because it's not just about diseases, it's about plants as well. So, if you're buying in hay from other farms, or hay or silage, was that paddock that you weed free, are there potentially a whole bunch of seeds of weed plants in that hay that you don't really want and you're about to spread all over your farm? Simple stuff like that. So I think, everyone should, ideally, I don't want to tell people they have to have plans for Africa, but at least, be thinking about this stuff and what are some, simple little things you can be doing on your own farm to protect your farm's biosecurity, to stop things getting in, because it's not just about coming over the border. We've already got plenty of stuff in this country that's already here that you probably don't, people probably don't want on their farms. So how do you, just thinking about systems and procedures and processes that avoid bringing in stuff to your farm that you don't want.
Yeah. So following the exercise farm gates happening in Taranaki on the 13th of May, a field simulation of this response, as well as wider multi-day in July across the industry, will you be able to share any learnings from it, or is it something that's very much an MPI internal process?
Well, this will be with, our partners through the operational agreement we signed last year. So undoubtedly, it'll go back to that operational group. So I believe Campbell Parker from Dairy NZ, he chairs that group. And so they'll obviously, be looking over that, thinking about, what did this show up? What are the things we need to do differently? Undoubtedly, it'll be another piece of paperwork that gets added to the pile on my desk that I'll read at some point in time. And so, I'll be obviously looking at that, following up with MPI on, hey, what are the things we need to improve and what are the processes that need to happen to make sure that improvement occurs.
Andrew, I heard one of the funniest things on one national radio station last week, that which MPs are using AI and how. And there was some funny ones, like Miles Anderson didn't even know what it was. But you must use it, because that would be the only way to get through that pile. Surely.
No, I just...
You actually old school read every page.
Well, I've got pretty reasonable at fast skimming through paper. And so it's, it's a case of spotting things that, you're reading through and you're going, oh, that feels important. Actually, slow down, read it a bit more slowly, and perhaps read it again. There are some papers that, honestly, they are a real mission to get through, and one word could have been used instead of 20 words at times, and lots of acronyms, and the sort of language that's very corporate-y, or the type of language that just doesn't make sense, and it's not just plain to the point. I am trying to install or get my message across that I do like direct, simple explanations of things, and don't get caught up on lots of waffly words for me. And it's slowly making its way through. The papers are getting a bit more direct and to the point.
I was just thinking with Nicola Grigg and yourself at Ministry for the Environment with the RMA reform, both of you together would be like, just cut to the chase. What are you trying to do? So, yeah.
Mainly Bishop and Simon Court that have to deal with the RMA reform stuff, but I think it's I see it all the government departments. It can be some heavy reading at times.
Yeah. Hey, good work. Enjoy being home, and thank you for what you're doing with regards to the foot and mouth outbreak response readiness that the MPI is doing alongside its operational partners there, happening on the 13th of May, just about what would happen and how we would respond. So great to have you on the show, Andrew. We'll see you again soon.
No worries. Cheers.
CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.